I was at the Tory headquarters in Calgary. I wasn't particularly surprised at the outcome on Tuesday night. However, I was stunned at my own personal reaction to Jim Prentice's speech, because I think there was a lot of rage in the public. Obviously, we saw that in the polls, but the speech itself was heartbreaking. I was standing right in front of Prentice because I was filming, and watching him make that speech, it was clear that this was a man who was profoundly devastated. And he started talking about how he was a young man in the party, and the reason he came back was to try to do whatever he could, and that he couldn't have lived with himself if he hadn't have at least tried. And he started to get tears at the back of his eyes, and it was interesting because it was a very human moment. It was not what I was expecting to feel or see, because it was such an epic shift. But in the end, it came down to this one man who was having to stand there, and I think that folks would be astonished to know that, barely a couple of dozen people showed up to support him in that moment. Wow. And particularly given that we had attended a leaders dinner in Edmonton the week prior, where 1,600 people had paid $500 a plate to support the Tory party. That's $800,000, and not even 24 people showed up. And I thought, wow, this is devastating for the Tory party. And indeed, subsequently, what we've seen in the media and generally in the world is this fervor for the NDP. But I think it needs to be noted that Jim Prentice, had just a heartbreaking moment. So that for me was the most surprising.
Wow, but what an indictment of the Tory party, of the bandwagon mentality.
Yes.
That when their leader went down, they couldn't even be there with him in honor.
Yes, and,
wow.
and that all those people had showed up and paid all that money. And why were they there? I mean, it really tells you that they were there only to access the power that he had, and not because they believed in the party or because they believed in the messaging. It was as time goes on, I am more shocked by that event than I was even at the time.